Okay, so they needed to maintain social integrity. That was a necessity. As I said, population base was a must as well. If they didn't replace the population, they just died out. We have historical context for that as well.
And that kind of explains why, you know, when people have experienced intimacy where they really were dependent on each other to survive, why they tend to put the well-being of the people around them above their own. Because those other people are their survivors.
Yeah. Cultures, I mean, throughout history, people work to maintain the transition of their own kind to the next generation. Royalty is a good example of that. They don't want to breed outside their bloodlines. Yeah, that's, I trust me, it's the hillbillies of Europe. And you have maintaining resource acquisition. Because if you don't have resources to cover all those people, there's going to be upsets. You're going to have people who have some and people who don't. And the people who have some are going to have to deal with people who don't eventually. And that's going to destroy the culture. And this is taken directly from my paper. It shows the fundamentally flawed. So what happens with fragments, failure in resource acquisition, and not one of the best models, but still it functions. But it can show all these things are required to work to get to here. If one of these things breaks down, it ends up in fragmenting the culture. Okay, now, understanding human behavior, which is another part of getting to the origin of religions. Okay, who here knows what the ambiguity effect is? Anyone?
I read it today in your paper, but I can't remember.
You want to play the law?
Pardon?
You want to play the law of Powerball?
Only when the odds are extremely against me, like when there's a huge jackpot.
Exactly. That's the ambiguity effect. Okay. The ambiguity effect is autonomic behavior. Okay. These are all autonomic behaviors. These are things you can't control. They just happen. Okay. They're part of your evolutionary track. Okay. And they've helped us survive. When we have a dollar, okay, and the lotto is the best example. Is we have a dollar. We can buy a ticket that has a 1 in 500 chance of winning. That, you know, basically 1 in 500. Or we can buy a Powerball ticket which has a 1 in, you know, what is it, 30,000, 100,000 or something?
Oh, it's like 22 million.
Yeah, 20. Okay, 1 in 22 million chance of winning. What are you going to choose? Most people will choose the Powerball ticket. That is the ambiguity effect. It is the ability to look at the benefit and say, you know what, that benefit is worth the risk. And by having that, humankind has been able to go, okay, you know what, the benefit is worth the risk. We're going to do this, we're going to cross this river, or we're going to do this other thing too. So the benefits are worth the risk, even though the risk is greater than just staying here. Anthropomorphism. Most people know what that is. Anybody? Yeah. It's how we humanize things. Yeah, you know?
That's basically what I was going to say. It's just the human tendency to assume like a human kind of reasoning or emotions or mental process in something that isn't human.
Why men name their cars, give them, call them her, things like that. It's anthropomorphism. It's an automatic thing. We have an automatic tendency to graft human qualities onto things. Okay, conditioning. Everyone's heard of Pavlov's dog, right?
Yes.
Fundamentally, that's exactly what conditioning is. It's attaching an emotional reaction or trigger mechanism to a stimulus. Okay, you have. I really went in depth in my paper on this one, but I'm not going to do it here because, quite frankly, it's a bunch of models and just showing the logical transition. So I'll give you a summary so we don't spend a couple hours. So that's really important. You have a stimulus, okay, and that's either internal stimulus or external stimulus, okay? Now, internal is everything that you feel inside, anything that comes from you.
So anger, love.
External is everything outside of you. Our ability to know the difference between the two is kind of what separates us from animals. What makes us everywhere. But moving on. When we receive external stimulus, okay, we have a reaction to it. Okay, and you have two options. Option A, it's positive. Option B, it's negative. Okay. Now, if it's either way, all data from here is taken and put in with both, with either choice. If it's positive or negative, all the data is put. This includes emotions. Okay. Now, if there's another event occurring, and it occurs multiple times, side by side with this stimulus, we associate it with that. That means when we see this now, it now triggers this reaction. That's conditioning in a nutshell. Okay?
So actually, that thing over the right could be language.
This
I
could
mean,
very
the word
okay.
stimulates.
Every time you, how many times do people see religious references? Exactly. This is every religious reference you see. Okay. People associate this with good behavior. Okay. And it's conditioning them subconsciously. They're not even realizing it's which is really sad. But it's confirmation bias is a cognitive effect that results from this. Empathy, mentioned earlier. It basically is the ability to feel another's pain. Sometimes it can be beneficial, sometimes it can really suck, especially when someone dies near you or someone else is suffering. You have a sense of survivor's guilt, things like that, where you want to help them but you can't. And it can be traumatic and cause problems. Fear, anxiety. You want to hear not been afraid of something? A lot of things happen when you become fearful.
We live in fear of the future.
Oh yeah, everyone does. But that's. I like. Has anyone seen that movie Hitchhiker's Guide?
Yeah.
Okay. You remember what that guy says? Slugger Fest. He says, "Oh, I always thought there was something greatly wrong with the universe. Oh no, that's normal. Oh, that's just normal paranoia. Yeah. Fear of the future, that's just basically normal paranoia. But fear, anxiety, studies have been done into fear a lot. Okay, by the way, that's ambiguity effect. Anthropomorphism is found a lot in Egypt. But I only have a few of these because they're a small slide. But fear, anxiety has shown to be something that can truly corrupt and destroy your culture. Okay, the more people fear, you can control culture with it, or you can cause people to suffer psychological damage. What happened after 9/11? How many people remember that?
Everyone bought an American flag.
Well,
Not just that, there was something that occurred after 9/11. It was the most that had ever occurred to a civilian populace.
well, I know one thing that happened, but I don't think that's what, we all have a sense of, we're in this together, we're going to.
Oh yeah,
But I don't think that's what you're wanting.
PTSD.
Oh. Was that right?
Post-traumatic stress disorder was found among hundreds of civilians that experienced it from fear and anxiety watching the planes strike the towers. It was the greatest occurrence in civilian population report.
I've got a question. Did that happen among people who saw it actually closely, or?
People who saw it
Was it
happen,
just as
recorded, people who experienced a level of fear and anxiety so bad that it caused them to suffer from PTSD.
Yeah, but I'm
For
talking
people who
about,
saw it on TV.
was it equal for people who saw it too?
Yes.
It was mostly just.
Oh, yeah, it was found all over the
Okay.
country.
Wow.
People would relegate the bodies falling through the windows, people jumping, things like that. You know, but all it takes is enough fear and anxiety and it can be crippling. Okay? And we've already seen from Iraq war vets how PTSD affects, I mean, Vietnam vets alone, how it can affect someone. Okay? Pain and suffering. Basically, how you interpret pain and suffering in your cognitive state, everyone suffers at some point. Okay, everyone has different pain level tolerances. How your brain interprets this results on whether or not you determine it to be a negative or positive stimulus. Some suffering is seen as a positive stimulus. Okay,
Would you, I'm curious.
flagellants.
Flagellants?
The flagellants from Europe, Middle Ages, they saw the pain, the more pain they felt,
Oh,
as a positive. S&M, I believe 50 Shades of Grey was the recent movie that came out.
I didn't.
A case, well, it's a case of S&M, bondage.
Oh, okay.
It's where pain, suffering is seen as a positive stimulus. Okay? Plasticity. It's one I constantly keep forgetting about. Okay, assigning, plasticity is what basically forms into your assigning new data. You have something new pop in your brain. And your brain goes, okay, this has, say, this is an egg. Okay, the egg is white, it has yellow inside, and it's kind of runny, but when cooked, it's yummy. Okay, so all this data right here says, okay, well, what else is white? All right, what else is yellow? What are the things do we know that are runny? Okay, and it forms these connections in between all the memories. Plasticity is what allows us to do that, which is what this is. Brain plasticity. You see all the interconnections?
now, some people, when they hear music, they'll see color and things like that.
Well, that's your memory templates working for you. When your brain writes down when you remember something, you have a primary sensation when you remember it. Like when you hear a song from someone that you've had a great emotion with or loved, you say, oh, that's our song, and you hear that song, the association of that emotion, when you hear the song, you remember first. And then you remember the side information, side data. Basically the generalized data, like you were in a bar, it was kind of smoking, she was wearing whatever. Most guys don't remember what the clothes were. It's fact, it's just one of the things. Stability. Something we have that really doesn't function all that well, but it is what it is. It does work into religion formation. It prevents all of this data from breaking down
Well,
or being corrupted by new data coming in.
wouldn't stability, when you sometimes go into a totally different culture, you suffer sometimes culture shock.
Yeah, that's
So
that's
that's,
no
wouldn't that be part of stability, saying you really want to keep the culture, the one you understand?
Yes, because when you're in a culture, you're conditioned to the belief systems of that culture.
Yeah.
You're told this is bad, these are good. Now, if you go into a new culture and it says this is good with these two things and this is now bad,
Yeah.
your conditioning is this. That means all the positive emotions that you get from performing this conditioning, that's a type of operant conditioning, by the way. D.F. Skinner is the one that did all the work in operant conditioning. But when you do this, the operant conditioning rewards you with a positive emotion. But when you see this as being negative now, when you're from a different culture, that's where I say regional cultural norms you have to remove. It says, okay, well, this is now bad, so the conditioning actually fights, and you can actually experience some emotional trauma.